Hi there, welcome to Manhood Explained. My name is Camille. Today is 13th of April 2022. Welcome to video number 318. If you click the video, you probably I caught you by this clickbait title. But you see, I thought about the same because I heard it like a few days ago, and I start thinking about it because I felt that something is wrong with it, and I got to the conclusion that if you don't understand the right context that this saying is supposed to be used in, you're gonna basically destroy your relationship and you're gonna end up miserable. So let me explain. If you're watching this video, I assume you are in some kind of relationship or in marriage, and you are in it for some time, because at the beginning everything is great and you don't think about those subjects. But if you're in your relationship for longer, then you kind of know that things get complicated or much more complex than you might thought. And when everything goes fine, everything is great. But this saying will be hurtful because the situation when things go bad, they have tendency to go bad really, really fast, especially if your relationship is not so solid as you thought it was. So that's why we need to look at your wife or your girl from a perspective of what she objectively, what kind of features or what kind of characteristics women in general have, and what might happen if they're going to go rogue, if the situation will go really dire. Then you will understand how is that connected to this saying, why it is dangerous to fall for it. Listen, there are three major things that I kind of find as objective facts which might be really destructible, or they can destroy your relationship really, really fast. First of all, our women are much more emotional than we are. And it's kind of obvious, we know this as guys, but interestingly enough, even if you ask your girl, and if she's a smart girl or she is experienced, like if you ask your mom or something, most of women will tell, yeah, we know about it. Yeah, just especially this whole hormonal roller coaster, we know. But interestingly enough, just as a side note, it's one thing to know that you're emotional, and second is to understand how less emotional your guy is. And listen, if you ever tried to talk with girls and explain to them how our way of how we feel and kind of express emotions is completely different, they cannot believe it. And I always compare it to colors because it's I think the easiest way to explain this. If you ask your girl about the color and you'll ask her to name it, she'll be able to name, like, I don't know, 32 million colors. If you're gonna ask any guy, he will give you one of maybe 10, maybe 16. It's not that we don't see it. It's like we just name few of them because it's easier. We don't think if that blue is oceanic blue or sky blue or whatever. We don't care. It's blue. So you see, the same thing happens with our emotions. We might feel them, but to name them, it's a completely different story. But that's the one thing how we perceive emotions. But again, this is a different story how we express them, and this is one of the biggest changes. Our girls are so much more emotional and so much more expressive, meaning that they're much faster. Their characteristics of getting into extreme emotions is so much faster than ours that it's amazing to see. But unfortunately, when things go wrong, every argument basically changes into argument about everything and nothing in seconds. Additionally, if we understand that when the negative emotions come into play, they cloud our judgment and basically logical thinking flies out of the window, then you understand that in seconds your argument becomes emotional argument rather than a logical one. And that's why many times when you argue, after your 20, 50, or 100 argument, you get to the point that you feel like you're arguing a child. And maybe many times you hear, I'm not your mother, and something like this. At least for me, these are the situations that we are it is kind of logical to feel like a father, because it looks like you're arguing a 13-year-old girl who's gonna throw hissy fits and say, I'm not gonna do this, and she's gonna slam the door just because she doesn't agree with what you're saying or what you ask her to do. So you see, first thing, these are emotions and how much more emotional they are than we are. Second thing, the objective fact is our women want us to be their providers and protectors. But when they get bold and when they're kind of become, when they start abusing what we're giving to them, it becomes crazy, right? Because how many times you've seen your girl or someone else's girl basically mouthing someone else, and then when someone is trying to get back to her, she's hiding behind you, and you have to deal with the consequence of her big mouth. How many times have you seen that woman went berserk and basically destroyed the relationship and took half of his money or all his money, and she took all the kids, the kids without even though they shouldn't be with her because she's completely not ready to be a mother. You see, there's so many situations that you see that the fact that we are protectors and providers might be abused, and many times it is. Not even mentioning the law, especially in the United States, which basically favors women, and it makes this whole problem much even worse than it is. But the third thing, which might be a reason for it as well, is how she thinks. And objectively, our girls can think, and they're smart girls. Many of them are really, really smart, and it's awesome to be with them and hear their own perspective because they see the world completely different way. But if things go wrong and she's under influence of this extreme feminism, which is basically flourishing right now, what she's going to do is she'll bring this philosophy of her as a woman being able to do everything as you can as a man, and soon enough she'll start to make your relationship and treat it as a competition rather than cooperation, and it never ends well. On top of it, many of them, when their relationship falls apart, they're going to go towards this hypergamy game, and basically she's going to leave you just because she'll find someone else who has more money, more status. And interestingly enough, it will basically make them untrustworthy because a few years later she basically stood on the altar and said, I'll be with you in the sickness and in health. Now it doesn't count, or you see, that's why there's a problem if she's listening to the wrong advisors, extreme feminism being one of them. She's gonna end up basically destroying your relationship just because she feels that she wants to be the strong and independent woman, and she would want to go and try her life on her own. Many times they'll come back because life is not so simple as they think, and it's not so simple as they paint it for them. But many times it happens, much more often than before. So we've got a much more emotional person that you are. You've got someone who is, because of their situation, they might abuse you being their protector and provider. And three, if they're having bad influence, they're gonna start thinking that it is okay to fight you rather than cooperate with you and basically destroy your relationship. And unfortunately, statistics are dramatic. 50% of marriages end up in divorce. In 2000, I think I saw the statistics for evangelical Christians, 26%, a little bit better than the rest of the world. And if you see the statistics for divorces, like over 80% of divorces are filed by women, and one of the most common moment when the divorces are filed are when man lost his financials, lost his company, lost his job, or basically have some issues like maybe he is depressed. Interestingly enough, that's what happens. That are statistics. Numbers don't lie. And at the end of the day, the sad thing about all of this is that it goes against everyone, because if you see statistics about most unhappy people, because that study was done, they found out that most unhappy people, at least in Western society, are women 40 plus working in corporation, working on their career, not having family, and being alone. Surprise, surprise. So now coming back to the kind of theme of this video, I want to ask yourself, why would you put your wife first? Why would you think that what she wants, especially if she is under influence of those kind of ideas, and if your relationship doesn't go really well right now, why would you think that giving her a priority is gonna save it? Because let me tell you what's going to happen, because I've seen this in many relationships all the time. When you think that your wife's supposed to go first because then you'll have happy wife and happy life, right? You're gonna basically do what she says. When you're gonna do what she says, you're gonna basically give her the kingship. You're gonna give her the keys to your own kingdom. And interestingly, she will hate you for it. Because sooner or later, she's gonna get to the point that she's holding everything on her shoulders. And we kind of add to that, because if she's doing a good job, why would we help her if we're gonna make things worse, right? So we kind of pull back, and that's another mistake. But sooner or later, she's gonna get to the point that deep in her heart, she doesn't want to lead. She can, but she doesn't want to. She doesn't feel that it's her strength, and this is the right way to look at things, because we were put in a position of leadership. That's why we are much less emotional. That's why we are so competitive. That's why we are visionaries. That's why men in general seeing in the long term, because then we are much more thick-skinned. So we are prepared to be in this highly competitive environments. That's why so many men are in CEOs and they stay there, and that not so many women are there. Or even if they are there, they're not staying. And these are statistics. So you see, what I want you to understand, that if you put her in that position of leadership, she's gonna start hating you, because she is doing things that she don't want to. And at the end of the day, you will end up in a miserable relationship, or in no relationship, because she's gonna quit. So that's why I want to propose looking at it from a different perspective, and see that maybe it's supposed to be happy me, happy wife, and then happy life. Because if you kind of look at yourself and how we were created and why we're even in our relationships, you start to see that you were not called to be a queen pleaser. You've been called to be a king. You've been called to basically build your kingdom, and then out of abundance of this kingdom, give your wife, your kids, and society that you live in something that they could have their life being built, or just to give something that will make their lives better. But you have to have abundance. And you see, that's why you are who you are. That's why you're a man, to understand that there's just two ways. I'm gonna concentrate on my kingdom and make it first. So in the long run, it's gonna bring fruits that we all can benefit from. Or I'm gonna do whatever my queen says, basically give her a kingdom and let her destroy it, because she's not prepared to make it happen. And she's gonna hate you for it, that you pass this whole responsibility on her. So you see, what I want you to do is to basically ask yourself, what do you want to do in your life? Have a plan and just do it. Basically, be persistent in going towards achieving your goal. I want you to raise your bar. It's not about, making yourself happy first, meaning I'm gonna, sleep with other girls. I'm gonna spend my money on some stupid stuff that I don't need. No, be wise. Because I'm always talking from the perspective of how to make your relationship better. How to make yourself happy, much more happy in your relationship. And it starts with you. You want to be the person who is not only happy in the simple things, that you're supposed to put yourself first. Because if you're miserable, she's not going to be happy. She's going to feel your vibe, and it's not going to work, especially long term. But even more important is for you to be able to be proud of yourself. You want to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm proud of you. The kingdom that you're running, it's running well, and I know that it's going to hold up in the long term. So you see, be someone who is capable of doing crazy things, starting from the small ones, like know how to clean your clothes, know how to clean up your apartment, know how to deal with the small stuff of life. Because some of us, and I hear this story lately, when a gentleman lost his wife, she died, And he has to learn to live again. And I'm quoting someone who told me about it, because he didn't know how to deal with his finances. He didn't know how to wash his clothes. He has to learn like at least half of the things that happen in their household, just because he never he never learned that when she was there. So that's why I want you to look at it. My kingdom's supposed to be flawless. It's supposed to work as it's supposed, and I'm supposed to be happy. And then, out of my happiness, I can bring happiness to my wife, to my kids. Because doing things when your kingdom is in shambles is just not going to work. Not in the long run. Definitely not in the long run. And you ladies, if you're watching this video and your blood is boiling because you heard some stuff about, telling you this or that, listen, think about it. What kind of guy do you want? One, someone who is basically doing what you tell him to do, someone who gives everything to you as you want it, someone who has completely no ideas of his own, he's not spontaneous, and he's basically doing everything to please you, or someone who's basically able or capable of saying no, and spending much more time on building something that in the long run both of you are going to be able to benefit from. Ask yourself, which things in the long run will make you happy? And I'm sure that most of you, a huge majority of you, will say definitely the second one. Because you know that it's fun to be spoiled, but you have to be able to spoil from something. If the kingdom is not working well, there's no resources to do that. So listen, this is what I want you to take from this video. There are tons of quotes, tons of these one-liners who sound well because they're propagated through our world over and over again. But when you look at who are those people who are saying that, they're or feminists or guys who are miserable in their life and then trying to double down on a strategy that get them here, that they're miserable. So don't be stupid. Don't listen to everything that people say. Think about it and be the smart one. Be the king who is fulfilling his calling of building a kingdom which will work in the long run. Kingdom that will bring abundance, so you will be able to spoil your wife, spoil your kids. Because that requires wisdom. That requires you to raise your bar. And that requires you to be happy first. So, happy me, happy wife, happy life. Think about it and do something about it. Because your happiness is in your well-working kingdom in the long run. Not in your happy wife, no matter what today. Be smart. If you like this video, like, share, comment. If you didn't, comment as well. Tell me what you think and what is your experience. And if there's anything you want me to talk about, just give me a shout. I'll be glad to talk about it for you. That being said, see you in the next video.